Hi there, thank you for joining me to chat about this latest episode of 90 Day Fiancé, Season 10, Episode 11. If you're a fan of the show, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and let me know your thoughts on the episode in the comments. So we see where Clayton and Anali are packing up to go meet his friend Cameron, and he asked in the confessional if his mom could come, and Anali was like, hell no. I think he was joking, but she's like, absolutely not. So now that he's convinced to go meet Cameron, he seemed pretty excited to meet him in person. And he said he has known Cameron for half his life. So as they were filming in the airport later, we see where he said to Annalie, how pretty she is, tells her she's pretty. And she didn't really say anything. She seemed kind of disinterested. I was like, ooh, okay. So Clayton and Cameron have known each other for like 13 years. And we see on Cameron's side where he's being filmed, he's also excited to meet. And we see where he's kind of nervous as he waits at the terminal for them to arrive. And I actually like that Annalie has pushed him to meet Cameron, because I feel like if she didn't intervene, they probably would never have met, because all Clayton does is hole himself up in the apartment. So later on, they meet at the airport, they hug it out and all that, and we see where Cameron drops him off to the rental that they're staying, and they plan to meet later for drinks. The rental is actually really cute and much bigger than you would think a typical rental. And as I saw this, I was wondering how much it was costing him, and he said that he had to splurge a little bit. I guess he wants to impress Annalie, and especially now that they're away from the house, you know what he has in mind. So Annalie is quite happy with the environment without mom and all the pets, and she seemed to like San Diego as well. She's happy about the space. She talks about how pretty it is and the fact that they're going to be alone. So I can imagine how much of a fresh air it is, a breath of fresh air for her to be there without all the chaos and all the junk in the space. So when it's time to leave, I don't know how she's going to be able to pry herself away and go back to the apartment. But anyway, later on we see where they meet up with Cameron and his girlfriend V. He asked about how the wedding plans are going, and he goes on to say how he has no one on his side in the wedding, and he asked him to be his best man. Cameron, of course, is happy and said, of course. And V was like, finally you get to wear a suit. So got that all hashed out. And the next thing that happened, my jaw literally just dropped as it unfolded. So the waitress comes to take the orders, and Clayton says that he needs his version because he doesn't drink alcohol. And then also he says he's effectively living as a virgin because he hasn't had any sex lately. I was like, oh my God, this is Nikki 2.0. What is happening here? Annalie looked pretty embarrassed, as was Cameron and V, and so things got a little bit silent and awkward. I was like, dude, why did you do that? So, Annalie was just sitting there, and she didn't really say much. Cameron is trying to give him the hint not to say anything else, but of course, Clayton cannot pick up a hint. And Cameron says, she's giving you the eyes. That's the eye, that's the eye telling you like you're talking too much to shut up. And he does not stop. So he was like, what's she gonna do? Not have sex with me? I was like, oh my God. It seems as though, although Annalie speaks mostly Spanish, that she does understand what is being said, because in her confessional she says that she feels disrespected, and it looks like she was tearing up at the table, which I felt so bad for her. And not to mention that he was talking about her when she was still sitting there. And on top of that, it's not like they were, close friends of both of them. He might be a close friend to Clayton, but they're also just now meeting in person. She doesn't know V from anywhere, and he's talking about all this stuff to people who are essentially strangers. So Cameron continues the conversation. I feel like at this point, seeing that Clayton was digging a hole for himself and didn't know when to stop, Cameron could have helped him out and just cut the conversation, change the subject, seeing that, Annalie was embarrassed or, not happy about the conversation. But he goes on to ask if it's an ongoing problem, And Clayton says, oh, the streak's running a little bit long. And V asked a good question, which I was wondering about that as well, since since she came home, since Anali came to the U.S. and especially after the night away at the hotel when nothing happened. She asked, if he had, asked her about the reason why she's not ready. And so, of course, he translates and she explains that the apartment is small and the mom is there and you can hear everything, in the apartment, and so she's uncomfortable. Clayton goes on to rebut that, bringing up the time that they went to the hotel and nothing happened. And so Cameron asked Anali her thoughts since she hadn't been saying much, and she's not happy that Clayton is discussing their private business, and she doesn't think it's fair. It's a private, situation, and he's talking about it to, people at the table. She feels like he's acting macho around his friends, and in her confessionals, she says that he's acting all macho, but when he's at home, he doesn't act like that. He's more of a little kitten. I was like, woo, that was hilarious. But it's true. Why is he all of a sudden now being a jerk? And then when they're alone, he relents to everything she says, and he doesn't have any issues. But then now all of a sudden, he's puffing up his chest and, embarrassing her and not thinking about her, feelings. So ultimately, she decides that she wants to leave because he just wouldn't lay off the topic. And in the confessional or, the interview with Cameron on the side, Cameron says he's concerned about their relationship, and there's a tension there that he didn't notice before when he picked them up. Well, of course, there wasn't that tension before because this whole thing has happened at the table. Who wouldn't be upset? And, as they walked away, I noticed that Anali had her hand in her pocket, the hand that was on the side next to Clayton, she had in her pocket, and she was not trying to have anything to do with him. And, this is just not the way. You cannot try to guilt trip or embarrass somebody into submission to do something that you want them to do. This is not going to work out well. And Anali had already told him, like, I don't like to be pressured into doing things. So if you pressure me, I'm not going to be inclined to do what you're asking. So just stop. And so now that he's doing this, it's not going to work. It's not going to get him anywhere. And I feel like Annalise probably going to be even more turned off now. At Rob and Sophie's house, Sophie's asking for a duvet. And so they start having a huge fight over this because they're both accusing each other of being in a bad mood. Sophie says that Rob won't do anything to accommodate her. Rob says she's always asking for stuff. And I was just like, well, Sophie says she was asking for the bare minimum, and he has a problem with this. I don't know what Sophie was expecting because Rob is living like less than below the bare minimum. He doesn't even have a bathroom. And so anything above and beyond that he's going to have a problem with, as we can see. He says if you want a duvet, go get a duvet. And she's like, fine, I will pay for it. So I feel like a part of the defensiveness that he's having is maybe that he didn't have the money to pay for it. And so he's making it seem like she's asking for too much. Rob says the reason the duvet bothered him was because, one, he didn't know what it was when she first woke him up asking for one. And secondly, he said that he feel like she didn't even know what it was because he has 3 of them. I was like, okay. So, instead of saying, what are you talking about when she asked for an explanation as to what it was, he immediately got pissed. So clearly, I don't feel like the problem was with the duvet itself, which he later goes on to admit that the problem is not with the duvet, it's the fact that as soon as he wakes up, she's asking for something, and he feel like she's always asking for something. So Sophie also goes on to bring up the fact that the space is not suitable for 2 animals, plus the pit bull, and she knew the setup when she, moved here. She came to visit. It's not like she's here the first time. She had stayed with him before. So, the fact that she's bringing up the size of the space and all that, I could probably see why he's getting so defensive because this is not new. She knew how he was living before. But I wonder if there was a timeline set up as to when they were, when she would be willing to wait for them to move. Because I know she had mentioned that before when they were walking on the beach about moving somewhere else, but what was the timeline? Um, if they haven't established a timeline, or if that time hasn't expired yet, then I don't understand, why she's complaining about it. They haven't even gotten married yet. I don't know, if they even talked about that stuff. But anyway, she's bringing it up. It is a valid concern, but she knew this was the living situation. So, they're arguing about that. He tells her that she's hella bougie for someone who has nothing. I was like, oh my gosh. So now he's insulting her because she's asking for a duvet. And I wonder if maybe it was cooler at night. Maybe she was cold because she was saying, he didn't have a quilt or a duvet. And so, is the issue that she's cold? If she's cold, then what's wrong with getting a comforter or whatever it is? So they're having this stupid argument. And then she goes off outside. He comes outside and tell her to give him an hour in the morning before she starts asking for stuff. So what other stuff was she asking for exactly? Because I don't remember, at least nothing that we've seen in the last episodes, that she was asking for things. I know he did a few little modifications before she arrived, but what else did she ask for? I don't recall her asking for anything up to this point, but let me know if I missed that. So then he goes outside, and after he went outside, after Sophie went outside, we see where she's texting on her phone, and she's telling somebody, I guess a friend of hers, how annoying Rob is. And when Rob came outside, they're bickering back and forth, and she sarcastically apologizes for asking for a duvet, and he says, well, this is how I'll apologize to you too. So now they're being childish and tit for tatting. Rob says he wonders if this is what it's gonna be like, since they're continually bickering, and he wonders if he's gonna be one of those silent husbands who just say nothing just because they don't want to get into any kind of arguments. So we see where this blow up happens shortly before. After this blow up happens, Rob is leaving to go to work. So apparently Rob has a job. So we don't know what it is, but I guess he's going to work. I wondered before if he had a job, but I guess he does now. So in the evening, they go to a brewery on the boardwalk to have dinner and drinks. Sophie feels like they have good times together, but then they've been bickering a lot lately. And based on the good times that they have, that was enough to marry him. And she says that they just need to get the good times back. She thinks that they need to get out the house more often, and says maybe they need to do date night, maybe twice per month, to which Rob ultimately agrees. He asks for her to have positive energy, and she says sometimes he's a bit insensitive, and so she says she'll try not to take things personally, but he needs to work on not being so insensitive. And so they come to an agreement about that. And Sophie goes on to mention that they never fought before, but yeah, this is a virtual thing, so of course you're not really going to fight at all or have any disagreements. But now, you're with this person every day, you're in this tiny space, you're discovering things, you're not dealing with their moods 24 hours. You might see them, at the time that you're FaceTiming or chatting, they're happy, but you're not getting their bad moods either. So because of this conversation that they had at the table about, not being so insensitive, not taking things personally, she feels like, they're in a better place now. Well, she spoke too soon, because later on in the episode, we see where they're back to bickering again. So we see where they go into a sex shop, and Sophie says that they haven't really been having sex as of late. Once, she says, in the last 2 weeks. And so the sales ladies are showing them different items in the store. And Rob says their sex life is not basic, and he wonders if Sophie is ready for what he might come up with, because bringing her in there, he might come up with some other ideas. So he's alluding to the fact that he has a high freak number, I guess. So they brought up another contraption in a box, and it was kind of blurred out. We didn't really know, see what it was. I couldn't figure out what it was anyway. So there's a lady who was there who came up to them, and she says, "Oh, you both of you are hot." And she says, "If you're trying new things," and she's kind of hinting us to, well, I'm interested if you're wanting to do stuff. So she's smiling and looking, and so basically she's prepositioning them. And so, Rob is not answering. He's like, "You answer." And so she's telling him to answer, and the girl was like, "Well, I want to hear from you." And so now they get into bickering about the fact that Rob is not answering. And, she feels like because he's not answering that he's willing and he's interested in other women. Now, the fact that they're even entertaining this conversation with the sales lady shows to me that both of them are somewhat interested in what she's offering. So now they're bickering back and forth in the store, and both of them want the other person to answer, and neither wants to answer. Rob is saying, "Well, I want you to answer because I want to make sure that my fiancé is not interested in being with other women." And she wants him to answer no, that he's not interested, because she wants him to say that he only wants her. And so they're bickering back and forth, bickering back and forth. So later on, she wants him to apologize. She says he's sorry. He says he's sorry for sounding like he's interested in someone else. But she wants him to apologize for wanting to get into it with somebody else. And he's like, "Hell no, I'm not saying that. That's not what it was." And so the other lady, there were two sales ladies, and so the other lady, not the one who propositioned them, the other lady, we see she's just looking down and looking like, what is going on? So instead of them like, okay, this is going badly, let's leave the store, they're in the store having a full-on argument, bickering back and forth, getting loud and all that, and just a big embarrassment. And so Rob says that if he was shopping and saw a couple acting in this way, he would think that they shouldn't get married. And I was like, wow, that's a brilliant idea, Rob. You should take that advice, because I just don't know what these two, they don't even know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing. They shouldn't really be getting married. They're constantly bickering. They're not ready. They're not on the same page. It's just going to be more problems. But anyway, this is the end of their segment in this episode. It's wedding day for Nick and Devin. They wake up and Nick was like, "What are we doing today?" He was joking. Devin was like, "You better not forget." So he cannot believe that it's happening. He's very happy. Devin says that her dress will be delivered to the wedding venue. She says that the top to her handbag is getting redone, but she hasn't seen it yet. So hopefully it's to her satisfaction and we won't see another meltdown. And a side note, I hope she has apologized to her mom. We haven't seen that shown. And we do see where she says that her mom was nagging, but maybe she has a different opinion of nagging to me, but I didn't think so. But she says that, her mom cares, and I'm glad that she realized it as well. So we see a view of the space. It's pretty large. When Nick and Devin gets there, they're still working on putting the finishing touches on the decor. Her mom tells her dad that if the dress doesn't turn out right, it will not be a happy day. She tells him, like, you didn't see the way she was behaving at the dress shop, so hopefully things will go well. Nick is happy that he's able to wear his hanbok and, an injection of his culture into the wedding. He was happy about that. And when they got to the room that they're getting dressed in, Devin's dress is there. She goes to open it to look, but her sister was like, "Let me do it." She unveiled the dress, and thank goodness she was happy. She loved how it turned out. She thinks it's perfect. I'm like, yes. Woo. So we see where Devin's dad is having a conversation with Nick, and he feels happy to have him in the family. He feels like with the time that he spent with him over the last 90 days that he's gotten to know him pretty good, and he feels happy to let him marry her. He said that when he first met Devin, he was thinking like, what? Something's wrong with that boy. That was funny. But apparently they have gotten over all the happenings and the piggy comments and whatever else that he's done. And then later on in the episode, we see where it's time to walk down the aisle, and it was a really cute ceremony. Nick was emotional, and so was Devin's dad. Devin looks like a little doll. She was so cute in her little hanbok. And
I hope that this was streamed so Nick's parents could see it. It was a really cute wedding. Oh my goodness, it had me tearing up a little bit. They were really cute. Nick was semi-dancing back down the aisle after they were pronounced man and wife. He was happy. Devin's parents surprised them with a sunset helicopter ride, so they headed out to the helicopter after they walked back down the aisle. They seem really happy. I really do hope that he has stopped calling her Piggy. But overall, it was a good day for both of them. They've passed this hurdle of getting married, and so we'll see what happens next for them. Ashley is trying on dresses today. She is the one who's actually late for the appointment. We see where her mom and her sister are waiting for her to arrive. Then she arrives, gives her mom a hug, and then we see where she's asking her mom if she's happy about the wedding. Her mom is like, I'm happy for you. And then she asks me, are you happy? Are you happy about the wedding? Her mom's like, I'm here for you. I'm happy for you. Her mom is not completely sold on the whole thing. But anyway, we see when she tries on the dress, she comes out. Everybody loves the dress. It's a, what do you call that? Spaghetti strap kind of top. And then the bottom flares out. It's really, really pretty, but it looks like the bust needs to be hemmed in. So we'll see what the final product looks like. So then after that, we see where she whips out a crown that her sister was carrying for her. It looks almost like those headdresses or crowns that you'd see in those religious Catholic paintings. So I just wonder how Manuel will take that. You know, they're from a very religious society, and, you know, it could be taken as offensive, that kind of headdress. I don't know. I just wonder if he'll like that, given that, you know, it's more of a religious type of look to it. But anyway, she goes on to say that it's made of 100% quartz and it's supposed to amplify energy, I guess. She mentions looking like a mermaid, and her mom says, well, he needs to take care of his mermaid. And Ashley asks her mom if she thinks that he is, and she says the jury is still out. And I just wonder why Ashley asked her mom that question, because unless her head is in the clouds or something, it's kind of obvious that her mom is not 100% sold on Manuel. So, yeah, why does she know that her mom is not 100% there is beyond me. So anyway, her mom says she's worried because Ashley has high expectations on Manuel that he may not be able to live up to. Her mom brings up the fact that he always runs away when he doesn't get it his way. And I wonder if she sees that firsthand, or has she seen that firsthand, or is this all coming from Ashley? Either way, she says it's a problem and it's not adult behavior, which I agree. You know, they call it running away, but he explains it a little bit when he sat down with the mom a little bit later. But at the same time, he could say, you know, listen, let's not talk about this right now. Let's talk about it a little bit more later, and take off and go for a walk, perhaps, if he needs to, instead of abruptly taking off in the middle of the conversation, I guess. So Ashley is making excuses for him, saying that, oh, he doesn't have any family and he feels alone and blah, blah, blah. And her sister is like, yeah, I feel like that's a cop-out. So she's making excuses. And her sister says that people are turned off by Manuel because they try to make him feel at home and he just pushes them away. And with the behavior that they're mentioning, you know, they're not really sold on him. So Ashley goes on to say, oh, I've never had so much chemistry with someone. She goes on to talk about how much chemistry they have and claim that it's not just physical. And I'm thinking to myself, really? So then her mom brings up how they just F and fight and repeat the cycle and nothing gets resolved. She's like, where is the dialogue? She says that her mom says that she needs to talk to Manuel because she is not happy. She says in her confessional, you know, is this a match made in heaven or somewhere else? I was like, whoa, good question, because, yeah, we're wondering the same thing. So later at home, we see where Ashley is having a chat with Manuel because she tells him that her mom has some concerns. She says her mom is free today and asks if he is willing to meet with her. He blew out a huge breath, and then he agreed. So she's going to drive him there, and then she says she's going to say hi, and then she's going to leave so they could talk. Manuel says he is worried because her mom only knows Ashley's side of things and not his. And so when they got to the restaurant, he was like, he says that he feels like he's entering the lion's den. say a prayer for Manuel. So they get to the restaurant. Her mom's waiting there. It's like a little booth set up. So she's on one side. Ashley sighs in, and then Manuel sits down. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought you were gonna leave. And right when I was thinking that, her mom was like, do you mind leaving? I mean, I don't mean it in a rude way, but I want to talk to him and get him to know him without you here. And Ashley looked really scared, like, oh boy, I'm worried about what he might do or say. But she claims this because she claims that Manuel is worried about how, the app might translate what he says. Could it be a bad translation and things, come off the wrong way or something like that. So anyway, she leaves and they sit down to chat. And she says, she has heard some things that caused her to question his motives. And she asks what? And via the translation app. And she talks about him running away. And I was like, what? I didn't think that was a good example to demonstrate potentially questionable motives. True, it's not mature, but that doesn't mean he has questionable motives. So her mom tells him that when he runs away, that it scares Ashley. Manuel says that's how he is when he gets angry and she doesn't understand. He prefers to just shut his mouth and go out and relax. She asks if they're sure they want to get married, and he says yes, but sometimes with her attitude, she can't even stand herself. And I didn't get what he meant by this. Did anybody get this? Let me know what your translation or interpretation of this is. But her mom seems to understand because she was saying, see. I don't know if she really understood. But she goes on to tell him that she's big on integrity and wants to know that he will keep his word. And she goes on to say that she likes Manuel, but she doesn't trust him. And she will be there for her daughter. She says she'll be watching. I am surprised, though, that she didn't bring out the situation about the family, the fact that she hasn't really met the children and supposedly hadn't met most of the family. I'm very shocked that she didn't bring that up. But she says she'll be watching. She's not 100% sold, and she doesn't really trust him, but she's going to be a mom and supportive of Ashley and do her best to support her. But we know at this point, she is not really behind the marriage per se. Citra and Sam are finally at his house. Looks like it's really dark by the time they got there. She has concerns because Sam lives with his brother and his dad, and so she'll be the only girl there. She's worried about, how she will handle times when she needs to do girly things. So she gets into the house, and it looks like Sam's bedroom has a door directly outside. So they get inside, and she's looking around. The camera pans around. We see stuff everywhere. And she says the room is messy, but thank God it's not like Clayton's place. So she says her first impression is that he's messy and she just wants to clean up. Then she puts her stuff down and he wants to give her a tour of the house. The look of the house, it seems as though there wasn't anybody up when they got home, but when they got into the other part of the house and got to the kitchen, there was his dad. So his dad and him look just alike. You can see the resemblance. And his dad was like, oh, she's gorgeous, and hopefully she can help him cook. He does give a little bit of a creepy vibe. I don't know. It just comes off creepy to me. So I guess his dad sleeps in the living room, and then Sam is going to sleep in his brother's room because they're not allowed to sleep together. And then they get the tour of the bathroom. It looks like he rigged a bidet in the bathroom for her because he says that she wouldn't feel pure without it. And later on, we see where she's digging into her bag. She's bringing out some spices and some food that she brought from back home. She also had a shirt that her dad got for Sam for his conversion, as well as a hat. And so his dad, Brian, was asking questions about the conversion. He asked about when the conversion will be complete or something to that effect. And I guess it'll be done after they go to the mosque and they pray together or something like that with Sam and her dad. Brian is a little bit curious and he wants to see how it goes or the process of it. And Citra says it's okay if he wants to be there. Sam says you need to be careful with this guy. Get to know him first before you decide if you want to be there. And then he goes on to tell her about his beliefs in aliens and that he's an atheist and whatnot. And, um, but anyway, after that, they talk about, he talks, well, both of them were talking about this, how he's horny and all that, but they have to wait till the wedding. We see where they say goodnight. And he is laying in this little bitty bed in his brother's room. It looks as though if he turned over, he would just fall off the bed. I just got a little chuckle because it looks so little. Anyway, the next morning we see where Citra's, he comes in to say good morning. He kisses her on the cheek. And Citra says they can't kiss on the lips until they get married. And we see where she's trying to make some breakfast. And he's like all over her, hugging her and kissing her hand and doing all this stuff. And they talk about the horniness again. Citra tells him that they need to clean up his car because they cannot pick up his dad and his sister with the car looking like that. So we see a little glimpse of the back seat on the floor, and there's a bunch of trash on the floor, which is just nasty. And so I'm like, ooh, I guess he has some work to do. Later on, we see where they're taking the car to the car wash, and this is when we saw the full effect of the car. The back seat of the car has so much trash. It looks like you need a hazmat suit to get back there. There's so much stuff. Ugh. But she's taking it in stride. She's asking if he had any gloves, and she's trying to help him clean up the car because she wants to make a good impression for her dad. So in the midst of the trash, there was some paperwork, and she was asking if this is trash. She says that this is important paperwork. And she asked if it was his diversion paperwork. And she goes on to mention that her dad wanted proof. So this is when he decides to confess about the diversion issues. So he tells her that he didn't file the paperwork in time, and, he has to go back to court, and the judge will have to decide whether he'll get jail time or probation, and she is not happy. He says that it's up in the air and whatnot. So she's very concerned about what will happen and that her dad will be very upset. And he was asking her if she would stick by his side regardless, basically saying regardless of what your dad wants to do, will you stick by me? And she didn't answer that, which I'm like, I feel like he's trying to guilt trip her into staying because he is irresponsible. And I hope she doesn't fall for that. He claims that he didn't want to feel like he was hiding stuff from her, but he should have told her before she even got here, which after he said that, she asked, he asked if she would have still come if she knew this, and she says she doesn't know, but I feel like her dad would never have let her come if she knew that this was going on. So he has the nerve after that to ask, are we okay? And she's like, she didn't say no, but she says that I need to process what you're saying. In her confessional, she says that she's been patient with him the whole time, and now he's lied to her. She's just gotten here, and if he goes to jail, she's going to be here by herself. And she says, she wants to go back home. So this is like a massive red flag, that he has lied about something, not just to her, but also to her dad about this whole thing, and the fact that he's so irresponsible about something that could so significantly impact his life, and he's not taking it seriously. I feel like what she should do is tell her dad and let her dad make the decision as to what needs to happen, and that way he can't come and plead to her or get to her because she loves him and get her to change her mind. If it's up to her, she probably would, after a while forgive him. But if her dad is making the decisions, he'll just have to roll with it. So, not impressed by Sam. We already knew that he had lied about this, and now she's in a tough situation because she feels like her dad is going to feel like she lied as well because now the paperwork's nowhere to be found. But it's not really her fault if she didn't really know what was happening. So it should be interesting to see if she's going to tell her dad right away, or if she's going to wait until he gets here. Because if she waits, I feel like her dad is going to be really mad at her for that. Jasmine and Gino are headed to the beach. We see where It's a really gorgeous day out. Lots of people on the beach. She's heading out to the beach in her bikini. She says she doesn't know what the bikini policy is, but this is what she's used to back home. She has on a barely there triangle bikini top, and the bottom is barely there. Gina seems to be loving it, and she asked him to put lotion on her, and he's rubbing it in and trying to talk dirty, and I was like, oh gosh, please, Gino, we don't want to hear it. He's rubbing her butt and whatnot, and yeah. So she says, don't you think it's a good investment that I use our wedding money for it? He's like, yeah, I'm starting to think it might be a good investment. I'm like, really? She's trying to help him get used to the fact that she spent the wedding money on her butt implants. Okay. She does go on to say that she's feeling guilty for not telling him about where the rest of the money came from. But she's saying that, but she doesn't seem guilty to me. But anyway, that's still something that has yet to be revealed. Anyway, her butt, on the other hand, when she's standing up, and from what we could see, doesn't look quite right. But if they love it like it, I love it. Jasmine says that she thinks that this would be a good location for the wedding. She says she doesn't want Gino's family at the wedding, and Gino wants his family there. She says even if they get married in Michigan, she doesn't want them there. She didn't like that Donna was taking him to the strip club, Tony was proposing the prenup, and how that one nephew of his was telling her that she should be grateful that Gino brought her to America. Jasmine also goes on to say that Dana was texting Michelle not to talk about the bachelor party, don't tell her anything, and so that was making her even more suspicious, which it is strange. If it was so harmless, what is all the secrecy about? But we do know, and I don't think that that Jasmine saw that video clip that was in the episode showing Gino, touching the strippers. I don't think she saw that part, so maybe, but she has a right to be suspicious because he's making it seem so harmless, but then she can't be told about what happened. That's very weird. Jasmine asked how he would feel if she didn't want his family to be at the wedding. What if she said that she's not going to get married if they're going to attend? And he said he wouldn't answer. He said that he's not going to agree to everything that she says. And then she goes on to say that, listen, I will give them one more chance, but if they come at me with their nasty attitude, then I'm done. And so she says, well, I'm going to be your wife. You should be on my side. And so I guess we'll see what happens next time they meet up and whether she will really follow through on that. It just seems like this whole conversation, Jasmine was yelling. Is it just me? It just seemed like her voice was so loud and they were like 2 inches away from each other. Her throat must hurt by the end of this conversation. But anyway, it was a small scene with Jasmine and Gino this week. They didn't have a blow-up fight. Thank God. I was waiting for it to happen, but it didn't. So they're still having the usual issues. They always have something that they're griping and disagreeing about. But this is all the main points for this episode. Let me know your thoughts on this episode. Like, comment, and subscribe.